I keep running anyway because stopping means going back to that chair. I make it 2 streets over before my legs start shaking so bad I have to stop. There's a truck parked along the curb and I duck behind it, pressing my back against the cold metal. My hands shake so badly I almost drop my phone when I pull it from my pajama pocket. I dial 911 and try to whisper, but my voice comes out shaky and too loud. The dispatcher answers and I tell her my address and that I need help right now. She tells me to stay on the line and asks where I am exactly. I describe the truck and the street name that I can barely read in the dark. She says police are 3 minutes away and to stay hidden. She keeps talking to me in this calm voice, asking my name and if I'm hurt. I tell her my feet are bleeding, but that's not the important part. I can hear Dad's truck engine somewhere close, driving slow like he's searching. The sound gets louder and then quieter and then louder again as he circles the blocks. I press myself smaller against the truck's wheel well, trying to disappear. The dispatcher keeps asking me questions about what happened and I answer in whispers, telling her about the pliers and the chair and how I ran. She doesn't sound shocked or like she thinks I'm lying. She just keeps talking in that steady voice and telling me help is almost there. 2 patrol cars turn onto the street with their lights off. I can see them rolling slow toward where I'm hiding. The female officer gets out first and finds me still crouched behind the truck. I'm shivering so hard my teeth are chattering even though it's not that cold. She wraps her jacket around my shoulders while her partner talks into his radio. They position both patrol cars between me and the direction of my house, blocking the view. The female officer asks if I can walk and I nod even though my feet hurt really bad. They help me into the back of one car and the partner calls for an ambulance. The emergency room is bright and too warm after being outside. A doctor named Autumn Wise comes in and starts examining my feet under the lights. She takes pictures of the cuts from the gravel and then notices the old scars on my arms. She asks gentle questions about where those came from while she cleans the gravel out of my cuts with tweezers. I tell her about the ceremonies and how my brothers would hold our arms during the tooth extractions. She doesn't interrupt or act like she doesn't believe me. She just keeps cleaning my feet and taking more pictures of the scars. I find myself telling her everything because she actually listens. I tell her about Mom's missing teeth and Claire's lisp and the wooden box on the mantle. I tell her about the 4 generations and the forged medical records and how Dad was going to take 10 teeth tonight. She finishes bandaging my feet and then sits down on the stool next to the bed. She says she's going to call someone who can help and that I did the right thing by running. A detective shows up around 2 in the morning when I'm still in the emergency room. His name is Jason Manning and he sits in the chair beside my bed with a notebook. He asks me to start from the beginning and explain everything. I tell him about the pliers and the chair and how it's been happening for generations. He doesn't act shocked or like this is too crazy to be real. He just writes everything down and asks specific questions about dates and how many times it happened. He treats my story like it matters instead of like I'm some kid making things up. When I finish talking, he asks about Mom and Claire. He wants to know if they're still at the house. I tell him yes and start crying because I left them there with Dad. Manning says he can send officers to check on them if I want. I'm scared that a welfare check will make everything worse. Dad will know I talked and he'll punish them. But Manning says they'll be careful and just ask to see that everyone is okay. They won't mention me or say why they're really there. I agree because I need to know if Mom and Claire are safe. Manning steps out to make the call and I sit in the hospital bed staring at my bandaged feet. The officers come back about an hour later. Manning returns to my room and sits down again. He says Dad refused to let them inside the house. Dad showed them those fake medical records again and said everyone was asleep and fine.